I've never been good at letting go. Not of plans, not of worries, not of anything. I'm David and I live in my van Ivan, trying to outrun my brain. This last month, the open road tossed a few speed bumps along my journey and I'm still figuring out how to stop gripping the wheel so tight. A few weeks ago, I skedaddled out of Colorado in search of warmer days. I went south and a little bit west to Tucson, Arizona to do some climbing, work on my studies, and write. On the way, I had a pit stop in Phoenix, picking up my buddy who had flown out to spend some time with me and Ivan among the cacti. I went into this trip in a fairly good headspace. I was just on the verge of finishing a hard and tedious class. I was excited to visit a place I'd never been, climb in a new area, especially ready to experience it with a good friend of mine. Due to various factors, neither my buddy nor I were exactly crushing it climbing-wise, but we had a fantastic time. This happens somewhat frequently, so we've adopted a memories-forward mindset. When we get frustrated with poor performance, we remind ourselves that the best climber is the one having the most fun. Feel free to disagree, but at the end of the day, we always have a great time slapping sandstone. After a few days of hanging out, studying, and climbing, I was given a bit of a fright. A possible job opportunity had arisen. A job that would be an incredible opportunity. So naturally, I started overthinking about what an amazing job might do to me. I ended up falling into the hole that is my brain, and the next thing I remember, I was sitting on the patio of a cute cafe, staring blankly at my friend as he sipped his coffee. I explained my thoughts head to toe, and I can make up 1,000,001 excuses for why I would want to avoid a healthy path in life. But at the end of the day, I'm quite wary of change. But I will make all the changes I want. I'll make myself extraordinarily uncomfortable just to prove that I can. I'll push myself and force myself into bad situations just for fun, I guess. Building character? Sure. But it doesn't mean anything outside the little world that I've been creating with Ivan. One where I'm the ruler of the road and can be anywhere, do anything. So when it comes to truly putting myself out there and testing myself out in the real world, I guess it's just something that scares me. And I've had a lot of great and serious jobs before, but now I'm acknowledging this isn't just some other job. This would be starting down a new path in life. A good path, but a new path. We talked this all through. I acknowledged my insecurities and fears and came to terms with how irrational they may or may not be. I'm a strong and determined person, and I want to welcome any new challenges that may come my way. I'm open to all possibilities in life. So yes, I decided to pursue the job. All I can do is put myself out there, and whether I get the job or not, I'll be happy I tried, because I'm sure life will be just as sweet down either path. After we left the coffee shop, I felt good. We went and touched some more rock. All good things have to come to an end, though. After our time in Tucson, I dropped off my climbing partner at the Phoenix airport and headed west to San Diego. My sister lives in LA, so we decided to meet up somewhere in the middle. Accompanying her was the family dog Tux, the one that she robbed me of when she moved to California. We were very excited to see each other, and it was also great seeing my sister. We filled our time with long walks, visiting the dog beach, eating good food, reading, making friendship bracelets, and soaking up the sun. After having such a good time exploring and relaxing, it was quite a blow when my final paper for that hard and tedious class I mentioned earlier was returned to me. I had not passed, and I would have to make revisions, submit it again, and wait for an additional 3 days for it to be graded. I only needed to make a few minor changes to a handful of paragraphs. My thoughts and ideas were solid, I just needed to express them a little differently. Logically, it made sense. Emotionally, it broke me. I'm beginning to realize that I may or may not be a very fragile man. I want to be very clear that I'm well aware of how lucky I am to be able to lead the life that I want to lead right now. I will forever be grateful. But when my buddy visits me in Tucson or I hang out with my sister in San Diego, they're on vacation. We can all sit back, relax, and hang out, but while in these amazing places, I still have to lead my day-to-day life. I have to study for a few hours every morning, work on my numerous writing projects, have meetings, take care of appointments, and handle maintenance for my rapidly aging van. So I have a very limited amount of time to hang out with my sister and my dog. Failing my exam and having to take care of it really sucked. I was pitifully peeved. Thankfully though, my very kind and mentally stable sister was there to help me realize that this was only a minor inconvenience. Even though it was an unplanned mishap, we could easily take care of it with smiles on our faces and move on. It wasn't that big of a deal, just half a day of work and a phone call with my professor. But my anxiety immediately took over because, again, something didn't go according to my plan. I feel like I try and spend as much time as I can being mindful, trying to relax and embrace everything, yet there's always this primal inner dialogue who's constantly worried about everything. When in reality, everything is fine. Even if it's not fine, it's fine. I let little things affect me more than they should be allowed to. I read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius a few years ago, and it truly changed how I view everything in my life and how I respond to things like this. The book reflects my perspective. It reflects the concepts and ideology I choose to try and implement. But in reality, I often fall into pits of disquiet long before I've had time to consciously reflect and act. I just immediately crumble. Not all the time, but too often for my comfort. I think this will be forever something I need to work on. The very next day, I went to get new tires on the van to replace the smooth, balding ones on there. Due to some unfortunate circumstances, I ended up having to pay a few $100s more than I was expecting. Just let go. Nothing I can do about it. I'd already paid and driven away. It's done. Overall, we had a fantastic time in San Diego. We saw a lot and did a lot, and I'm very content with our time there. I'm not going to look back at that trip and think of the silly class or my uber expensive tires. It's all worked out in the end, and I believe it will continue to do so. So we said our goodbyes, and I shed a few tears as I hugged my dog, and we both hit the road, her going north and me east. As I ventured out of San Diego, my temperature gauge started slowly creeping up, getting closer to the little H and further from the little C. Not a big deal, it's happened before. I slowed down, going 45 in the 75. People zoomed past me as I crawled up the hills and started to go even slower as the little needle crept up further. It started getting too high for my taste, so I took the next exit and pulled off at the end of the ramp. At the exact moment that I came to a complete stop, the needle leapt up into the red, and I slammed the van to park and yanked the keys out of the ignition so fast they flew out of my hands. My head shot up from the dash to the engine where suddenly smoke was starting to billow out in large puffs, like in every movie I've ever seen. But this wasn't a movie. It was my baby boy. Somehow, in a fit of luck, there happened to be a few guys parked on the same patch of dirt, standing outside their county work trucks in their high-vis vests. I frantically ran at them, shouting at them, begging for help. They ended up looking all up and down under the hood and diagnosed a messed up radiator. They checked how bad it was, told me I would have to get it towed, and said goodbye. I got to the mechanic right before closing, so they checked me in for the next day and kindly let me stay in the van for the night in the parking lot. That next morning I went to a coffee shop and got work done for a few hours, but my blinding anxiety severely occupied my mind. After a full day of work and a series of tests, Ivan still wasn't ready. I spent another night in the parking lot, another morning at the copy shop, and the rest of my day sitting stoically in the mechanic's lobby. They kept triumphantly fixing things only to find out that there were more things that needed to be fixed. And I won't bore you with the rest of the details, but it ended up all getting taken care of. It only took 2 nights, 3 days, and nearly $2,000. I swear that whole time, my heart rate, which normally rests at 46, did not go below 95 day or night. However, there was a moment that I skipped over. A moment of solace where in a fit of romanticism and an insatiable urge to feel poetic and interesting, I stepped out of my van in the middle of the second night after not being able to sleep. I sat on the pavement, resting my back on the van, and looked up at the stars. I was listening to music on my earbuds, and for some reason I had a moment of peace. Maybe it was God, maybe it was the music, but for the first time in that agonizing day, I felt like I could breathe. I knew it would be okay. I mean, it had to, right? Either they fix my van and I drive out of here, or they can't, so I buy another vehicle, abandon Ivan, and drive home. It would suck, but at the end of the day, it'd work out. This logic was very helpful in that sleepless moment. I sat there for a second longer before getting back to my van and immediately falling asleep. That peace wouldn't extend to the morning, but right there in that night, it satiated me. It helped me fall asleep, and that was all I needed. Nothing is permanent, neither the problems nor the solutions. I got back on the road the following afternoon. I felt relieved, but for some reason I also still felt the pressure in my head and heavy in my chest. On a long drive, I like to listen to audiobooks, but I had little to no service driving through the desert outside of town on Interstate 8. So I randomly selected one of the 33 CDs I keep next to my seat. I slipped it into the player and let it flow through me. It was the album delightfully named Album by the band Girls. One of my favorite bands, one of my favorite albums, and it holds one of my all-time favorite songs, track 6, Hellhole Rat Race. I had the windows down and the music playing as loud as the 22-year-old speakers would allow. I grinned through the warm wind blasting into my van. The music soothed my brain just by being louder. The 5 tracks were a joy, and then track 6 started. It's quite a long song, and it crescendos roughly halfway through before repeating the main lines over and over for the rest of it. It happens to be hands down the most cathartic song in my arsenal of CDs. I immediately started yelling along as its lyrics slapped me around, forcing me to acknowledge and experience only what was presently happening, alone on the interstate in the desert in my van, racing down the hills. I was happy, but as the song's tension built, creeping toward its major climax, the pressure inside of me built right alongside it. I was screaming the words progressively louder and louder until the song climaxed, and suddenly my life washed over me. My past and my future overwhelmingly crashed upon me right then and there, and I realized that everything was out of my control, and all possible paths in life felt massive and unattainable, yet so near, and all the speed bumps along the way would be so fat and daunting. But I knew I'd be fine in the end, and I was still screaming the words, and all of a sudden, lost in the moment, the words left me, and I found myself just screaming. I chuckled a bit and smiled, and for some reason I felt okay. Like, actually okay. Not just a fleeting feeling of begrudging passiveness, but in that moment, I feel like I truly accepted every aspect of my life, myself as a whole, as a person, and all the decisions I've made, good or bad, positive or negative. I'm just a product of who I am, and all I can do is move forward. I finished off a few long drives, climbed a bit along the path, and slowly found my way home. I wasn't happy or excited or sad or anxious. I didn't feel like a new person or anything like that, but what I did feel was contentment. And not content in an unambitious or passive way, but content and at peace with who I am and what may lie ahead for me. Because for all of us, whether stressed about work, relationships, the car, health, or whatever eats away at you at night, all you can do is just try your best. It's pretty much all out of our control, and that's okay. We're all gonna be okay.